This video is sponsored by Squarespace. After a number of shipping delays, my Armageddon box has finally arrived. And honestly, it's a lot cooler than I thought it would be. So straight up from the beginning, the box itself is really nice. I know this is a little bit of a small thing to some of you, but after getting really subpar boxes for a lot of these starter sets over the past few years, I just have to say it's nice to get a sturdy, nice looking box that we can use for storage after we paint the models, like we did with the Leviathan box. And while it does contain less models than the Leviathan box for a significantly higher price, even when taking inflation into account, for a variety of reasons, I'm not really bothered by this, as the quality and variety of models included is much higher than the Leviathan box, in my opinion. So beyond the absolute forest of plastic sprues at the top of the box, we also get this nice little mini box here at the bottom, beneath which we also get the nice new transfer sheet featuring a ton of Space Marine chapters that I don't really care about, to be honest, Dark Angels Forever, as well as some nice new transfers for the orcs, with some nice updated graphic design for some of the older glyphs and symbols, which is always nice to see, and I can definitely see myself using these on the new orgs. Inside the mini box, we get a nice selection of paper goods. The first of which is this really nice new hardcover book that I actually wasn't expecting at all. As I had heard the new rulebook was smaller and in softcover, I just assumed this book would be as well for some reason. I was thinking something along the lines of the arcane journals or little supplements that come with the big Kill Team boxes. But this Operation Imperator book is actually quite beefy and really beautiful to look at. It's got that nice mixed glossy and matte look that we get on a lot of the modern codexes, and it's about the size of a modern codex as well. Below this, we get the usual instruction booklet and then also this mini core rulebook. These core rules are also free online, and if you want one of these tiny little core rulebooks for yourself, they actually seem to be priced relatively affordably at your local game store. So that's nice to see as well. In fact, the only thing I would really want to change about this new core rulebook is to get it in a spiral binding, so it's a lot easier to open up and lay flat on the game board. So maybe I'll get that done for myself at a print shop at some point in the future. By the way, we're not going to talk about the core rules at all in this video, as I just made a video on all the core rules, changes, and updates. I've left a link to that down in the description if you're interested. But we will talk about the lore/art book, as this is actually something I've been asking for quite a long time now. So now, instead of having to cram the rules and the lore and the art into a single hardcover rulebook that's going to cost between $60 and $80, but the book is usually like 80% just art and lore anyway, they've clearly taken the approach here of other games like Infinity, Warcrow, probably other games I'm not thinking of, and just made a nice, basically a nice art book full of lore and pictures of their miniatures, while putting the actual rules for the game into its own book or free document online. I like this a whole lot, and while the execution on this seems to leave a little bit to be desired, with the actual rules you need to play the game being spread over multiple places online, it looks like a lot of what you need is in the app, as well as extra documents on the website. I'm still not entirely sure how it's been organized. The concept is really good, and I would like to see more of this in the future. But do you know what other concept I like quite a lot? That's right, entirely new lore, art, and graphic design in the new hardcover book they're giving us. This seems like a pretty low bar to clear, but you might remember my review of the 10th edition Leviathan box. One of my big criticisms was the book was essentially exactly the same book that they had sold us several years earlier, at least in terms of the art and lore, stuff like that. They changed a few things, but it was broadly basically the same book sold to us a second time with new rules. In contrast, this new hardcover lore/art book contains almost entirely new content from what I can tell, so that is really nice to see. I'm a sucker for these sorts of books. I like reading them before bed, getting ideas from my armies from it, and I think they've done an excellent job with this one. It seems to be almost entirely a rundown of the current situation on Armageddon, all the different factions involved, with of course a spotlight especially on the orcs and space marines, as you might expect. giving us different paint schemes to use for them, as well as different iconography you might want to use for the various factions. A+, this is exactly the kinds of stuff I like to see from a book like this, so really good job on this, especially compared to the previous one. There is a very small section at the back of the book which contains more of the generic lore for all of the factions, but I just absolutely love that because this Armageddon box is targeted at existing players, not new ones, that they can be able to have a book in here that's also targeted towards those existing players and doesn't need to reintroduce you to all the lore stuff you already know. It's just giving you the new stuff. I love this. So far, great job. I'm really impressed with what's in this box so far. I actually had my expectations pretty low for this box, to be honest, but I'm pleasantly surprised by all of the great stuff in here. Continuing on, we also have a nice little packet featuring the rules cards for all of the units in the box. I've actually never had any of these before from my armies, so it's actually kind of cool to have the little cards for all my units included in the box. We also get 2 really beefy, really nice card decks in here. They're way bigger than I expected them to be, so great job there as well. I believe these are tarot card sized decks, with each one coming with a tiny little rulebook inside of the box teaching you how to use them. And the chapter approved deck, which is the standard competitive one I believe, also comes with a few punch out tokens, which is quite cute as well. And while I haven't fully dug into these decks yet, there's a lot in here to decipher and learn about. I am planning on trying them out this weekend, so I will get back to you and let you know what I think of these new decks, one for narrative play and one for match play. So that's it for the box contents. Thanks for watching. Oh, you wanted to know about the models. Okay, so let's talk about the models. But first things first, really good news for everyone who is me, because the Kit Bash DACA rig that I built a few videos back, turns out it is the correct size. At least the base size is correct for the one in this box, so I was super happy about that, as I was pretty much guessing what the proper base size should be based on images and discussion on the Orc Reddit. So that's nice. Previous to buying this box, I actually was a lot more hyped about the Space Marines, as I was kind of riding the Dark Angels hype train that I've been on for the past few months. But now that I've actually got the box in hand, all of my Orc boys kept begging me to show them what the new Orc boys would look like, so I gathered up a few of the boys, and we built a few of the new boys and the new knobs so that everyone could see what the new boys look like. But while me and the boys dig into the new models and put them together, do you know what else is really fun to assemble? That's right, it's this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website and hosting platform for all of your website needs. And it's extremely easy to use. Just pick from one of their fabulously designed starter templates or build your own template from scratch, and then customize things to your heart's content using their extremely intuitive drag and drop fluid engine. I've been using my current Squarespace site to host a gallery of my painted miniatures, all of my hobby reference documents, as well as my online store, which has been super easy to get set up, keep updated, and accepts a variety of payment options, all built in and ready for you to use. So if you need a website, why not check out squarespace.com today for a 14-day free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Dana Howl for 10% off your very first purchase of a website or domain. And now back to our video. Let's talk about the orcs. So honestly, when I first saw the photographs of the new orc models when they were first revealed, I was a little bit worried, as it looks like they messed with the proportions of orcs a little bit, at least on the normal boys, but especially on the new war boss. It looked like they had shrunken all of their heads a little bit and made their hands a little bit smaller while increasing the size of the chest and back muscles. Basically a more naturalistic and less cartoony version of orcs, which I understand why they would go in that direction. That seems to be what they're doing with all of their models. but I just wasn't sure if I was going to be a fan of it when I had the new models in my hands. However, the good news is, like most models, they are much better in person than they are in photos, and there are a lot of things that I like about the new orcs. To start with, the new orc boys go together really nicely. There's lots of variety of assembly options to make sure no two orcs in this box are exactly the same, and I was really surprised to learn that the grots and orc boys share a single sprue in this box. Well, 2 sprues actually, as you get 2 identical sprues, each containing 10 orc boys and 5 grots. Well, technically 9 orc boys, 1 knob, 5 grots. But again, there's no duplicates as both can be built in at least 2 different configurations. Coincidentally, this also basically confirms for me that we will be getting a new multi-part orc boy kit, as I can't imagine them selling this easy to build orc kit with the grots on the same sprue. So I would imagine as part of the summer reveals, we're gonna get the new orc boy kit. We'll probably get a new kit with grots with an optional runt herder. We'll see how those end up looking. And I would assume we're gonna get a new knobs kit as well, as they've clearly put a lot of work into the new knobs design. I would imagine we're getting a multi-part knob kit as well. So that's really good to hear, as it seems like they're really pushing the horde angle for orcs this edition. So it's really nice that we're going to be getting lots of variety in those horde troop sculpts. Overall, the orc assembly process was pretty smooth. These are push-fit models, or easy to build, whatever you want to call them. So you don't technically need glue to build these, but they really do have a lot of gaps that need filling. So I highly recommend using sprue glue or something similar when putting these together, as they really do need quite a bit of work if you want them to look really good. As for the proportions, and seeing them in person, comparing them to the older boys, the boys definitely do have smaller heads than the previous orc boy kit, but it's not by as much as I thought it would be. It's only really noticeable if you're really into orcs and the old sculpts, with the rest of the proportions being about the same from what I can tell. Although it does seem like they've exchanged the little beer gut and booty for a more blocky, large back muscle type of build for most of the orcs. I think honestly these will fit in fine with the older kit. It just looks like these orcs have worked out more and the older boys aren't in as good of shape as the new boys. Meanwhile, the new orc knobs, which are the leaders for the boys unit if you're not an orc expert, these ones, they have the proportions of what we might typically consider an orc hero or war boss, which is interesting. So they've actually been scaled up, but comparing them to the old ones, it's actually a lot more subtle than I expected it to be. Whoever did this clearly put a lot of work into this, where they've just slightly adjusted the proportions to make them slightly bigger. Nothing too extreme, but still noticeable. So the new orc knobs are the size of previous war bosses, being on a slightly larger base. And as for the new war bosses, well, they're just really quite large. So just a little sidebar here for those of you who aren't familiar with orc lore. Basically, the more orcs fight, the bigger they get. So most orcs end up dying in battle. So you've got a lot of the really small orc boys who this is like basically their first or second battle. And then the knobs are the larger ones who've survived a few battles, and then the war bosses are the really big ones who've been around for a while. That's why we have the different sizes of orcs. So while previously it seemed like the way this worked was that everything got scaled up in the same proportions. You know, the orc's head would get bigger, the orc's mitts would get bigger, everything gets bigger at once. With the new orcs, they've clearly done something a little bit different. It seems like they've decided from a design perspective, the orcs now scale up more naturalistically, with the heads, arms, and legs staying a little bit smaller to really give the impression that these war bosses are massive hulks of meat rather than just a normal orc boy scaled up with a slider. And like I said before, well, at first I was quite skeptical about this new warboss sculpt and his new proportions with the larger body and smaller head and hands. I have to admit, now that I have him all assembled, and especially seeing him next to all of the other orcs in the box, he seems to fit right in, as there actually is quite a large variety of orc body types in this box. From the surprisingly massive but skinny orc that is the new Weird Boy, to the more stout and broad Big Boss and Banner Bearer, and of course all of the knobs and standard boys. When you get them all together in a nice big mob, even with the old models, they all seem to scale just fine with each other, and I actually love that we're getting even more variety in terms of orc size and shape in general. It makes me excited for what other new orc models we might get. But of course, we can't forget about the grots. The grot sculpts here are all excellent, in my opinion. I think these guys all look cool. It looks like a lot less of them are wearing just loincloths than before. They've all got a lot more clothing than usual, so good for you guys. Happy to see it. So overall, for the orcs in the box, I'm really happy with most of the sculpts. While some of the new proportions are going to take a little bit of adjustment for me, I think it'll be pretty easy to make my own little kit bashes and adjustments to get them looking exactly how I want them to. Okay, so enough with the orcs. I know what you really want to hear about is the Space Marines, so let's talk about the Space Marines. And honestly, I know the sort of sentiment I was seeing online about a lot of the new Space Marines is that they all look a little bit too boring and samey. They're a little bit of vanilla Marines. After putting them together and seeing them in person, I have to say these new Space Marine sculpts are easily some of the best Space Marines I've assembled in quite a long time. The main thing that I really am in love with here is all the new dynamic poses. I feel like way more effort went into posing and silhouette here than usual, so great job whoever sculpted these. I also love all the mismatched armor plates. I love everything about these new basic Marines. I have to say there's something almost a little bit cute about them between the proportions and the mismatched plates. They just have a lot of personality to them, and I hate to say it, but I think they're actually cuter than the new orc boys. Okay, so overall thoughts, I am really loving this box, especially when compared to Leviathan. Once again, I used my own money for this. This wasn't a free product from GW, so I don't have any agenda in promoting this. There's just a ton of really creative sculpts in here that I'm excited to paint up over the next few months for my Orc army and my Dark Angels army, and I feel really satisfied overall with the amount of value and novelty that this box has given me with both how classic and retro this box feels, but also pretty new and exciting. And yeah, that's about it for today. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all of our wonderful patrons for supporting the channel. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And yeah, with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.